So I'm seeing a whole lot of people celebrating the big, beautiful bill passing and saying a lot of cold-hearted things about people losing their health care and hospitals closing down, mocking people and saying things like, well, now they'll have to get up and go to work. They'll have to get a real job, and just rubbing salt in the wound. And it got me to thinking back on an old story that my grandmother told me years ago, back when I was a kid. My grandmother was always a Democrat and very progressive, but when she married my grandfather, he was a Republican, and his family, his mom and dad, was even more hardcore conservative than he was. And my grandmother told me that her mother-in-law, which would have been my great-grandmother, she said that she just absolutely loathed FDR and talked so bad about him all the time. Talked about how that he was a communist, he was leading this country into communism. Talked about how the New Deal was nothing but handouts and everybody was too lazy and everybody needed to get a job. And talked about how Social Security would lead to the mark of the beast if everybody had a number and all these things. And so, they were even conspiracy theory minded back then. And so they were always at odds because my great-grandmother knew that her daughter-in-law, my grandmother, was a Democrat, and she loved to just poke at her all the time about it. And so when FDR passed away, it devastated my grandmother, and she cried that day. And then later on in the day, she bumped into her mother-in-law, and her mother-in-law looked at her and said, doesn't the air smell so much sweeter now that he's gone? Meaning FDR. And she was literally happy and celebrating the idea that FDR had just died. And I remember that story as I sit here and watch some of this crap I'm seeing on social media. I just thought back on that and I thought, we've always been this way. People have always been cruel. People have always been cold-hearted. People have always had these same talking points they've had forever. My great-grandmother had it all those years ago. And had there been a TikTok, and she'd have been allowed to use it anyway, she would have probably been on here saying the same kind of rhetoric. So, not that that's any, that's not going to make people necessarily feel better about it, but when you stop and say to yourself, oh man, people are so divided these days, people are so hateful these days, people are more hateful than ever, I would argue no. No, it's always been this way. It's just that Donald Trump exposed it. He empowered it. Social media empowered it. And so we see more of it. But if I'd have told my grandmother some of the replies I've seen and some of the responses I've gotten from people that are talking about and celebrating the big, beautiful bill, she would say, Brando, I'm not the least bit surprised.